In the world of cinema, female protagonists are a relative rarity. Women are rarer still in the massively popular superhero genre. So when the rightly lauded 2017 Wonder Woman movie was promised a sequel, many looked at it with high hopes. Expectations were that it would follow in the footsteps of its predecessor in providing an entertaining and well-made movie experience while doing what not every film manages to do, have something interesting to say about our society. But despite promising a very interesting dynamic between the two prominent female characters, Diana and Barbara, Wonder Woman 1984 is entirely a disaster. Filled with terrible plot turns, confusing messages, and laughable acting, the film is, honestly, one of the worst I've seen in recent memory. But there are scattered elements, particularly at the beginning, that give promise of an entirely different film, and I'd like to explain how if a few changes were made to the emphasis of the movie, it might yet have fulfilled its promise as a good film with something important to say about what it means to be a woman, with or without superpowers. Wonder Woman has long been a symbol of female empowerment. After all, she is quite literally that, a superpowered woman. So really, any good Wonder Woman adaptation should at least have that context and understanding in the back of its mind, if not very much front and center. Wonder Woman 1984, or simply 1984 as I'll refer to it from now on, promises us this through the introduction of Barbara Minerva, a recently hired scientist and researcher at the Smithsonian Institute, where Wonder Woman is currently working. Through Barbara, we're able to paint a perfect contrast to Diana, with the two women reflecting differing identities of womanhood. Where Diana is this blessed, confident, perfect human being, Barbara is basically the complete opposite. She's shy, awkward, and perhaps most importantly, subservient. She basically sees herself as being beneath everyone she encounters, and even allows this to question her own validity as a scientist.
I don't know why I was gonna wear heels. Scientists don't wear heels.
Sometimes we do.
Diana, of course, is indomitable and never allows herself to be seen as lesser. Where Barbara is seemingly desperate for male validation, Diana is perpetually skeptical of men. She rejects all male advances in the film, repeatedly and emphatically.
We can share if you like.
No, thanks. I'll wait.
That's great, Carl. Excuse me, I don't even know you, so please stop following me.
At its core, there is an interesting dialogue being had here between these two types of women. One who currently accepts the patriarchy, and one who could never fathom such an idea. Where the film goes awry is that it attributes Diana's rejection of men to her still pining over her former love. In the 70-odd years since the death of Steve Trevor, her love interest in the first film, she simply has not been able to get over him, and keeps seeing reminders of him everywhere she goes. Putting aside the ridiculousness of this literal goddess being hung up for 7 decades on a man she spent 7 weeks with, this is the first of many fatal blows to any hopes of 1984's thematic success. And this is where I'd like to start with our changes. Because what if Diana's rejection of men wasn't because she was love-sick, but sick of men? What if it went like this instead? After defeating Ares and saving humanity from itself, Diana returns to the human world to find that the world isn't actually all that great still. Living through the 40s, 50s, and 60s, she encounters a world which constantly treats her as second class. A world which tells women that their place is in the home, serving men. What if, despite being the most powerful being on Earth, she finds herself consistently patronized, talked down to, and condescended by men? What if she's watched a world develop where men are empowered and are the perpetrators of violence towards women? What if Diana is just sick of men? She realizes that her superpowers can't fix the deep-seated problems of the world, and disenchanted, she slowly begins to recuse herself from Earth's day-to-day issues. The starry-eyed young Amazonian who saw hope and optimism everywhere she went in the first movie is now jaded and cynical. A lot of these elements already exist in the film. We get the sense that Diana isn't really that involved with the world and only really seems to intervene when large-scale crime or supervillains appear. That is how she's able to keep an air of mystery about her very existence. So what if she's just had enough? This would be the backdrop of the film. Diana is lonely and aloof, not because she's missing Steve, but because she's questioning whether she really wants to be too involved with human society at all. And this is where Barbara Minerva would come in, who is still starry-eyed and optimistic, who reminds Diana of a younger version of herself, who Diana admits she is jealous of because of how free she is. Diana's problem is that she's fundamentally too strong and too good for this world. It's the Superman problem. How do you humanize a character who has no real flaws and to whom ordinary human beings must seem like children? Well, you turn that perfection itself into their problem. Diana is so perfect that she's lost a reason to empathize with ordinary people who behave in inexplicably stupid ways. She's become detached from the world, and she needs a reason and new motivation to connect with it once more. This is the perfect place of entry for Barbara, because we can see that, more so than she is with any other character, Diana is empathetic and protective towards her. She doesn't let Barbara accept her own self-image as someone unworthy of attention and respect.
You just seem like you'd be really popular. And I would know because I've never been popular.
You haven't? You're so personable. So free.
She constantly encourages Barbara to be more. She empowers her. Notice this scene early on in the film. The predatory male threat of Maxwell Lord sets his sights on Barbara, clearly looking to exploit her for the crystal she holds. But we can see Diana's reaction, immediately skeptical and protective. She physically steps in between the two of them, creating a barrier for Barbara, and then ushers Lord away. This is Diana's reason for reconnecting to the world, a desire to protect, at first, this singular woman, and eventually, women as a whole. Of course, in the film, these are all merely nuggets and hints, never to be explored fully. But that is what's so frustrating when watching the film. It seems to have the foundations for ideas that could be great to explore, only to be either oblivious to them or ignore them entirely. Take, for example, the semi-romantic tone that their relationship initially takes. The teased romance between the two women only ever remains that, teased. It's promptly abandoned when Steve arrives in the film, but it could have been so much more. If you're unsure what I mean, let's look at when they first meet. If we were to change Diana's gender for this scene, the interaction that takes place between them would be considered unquestionably romantic. In fact, the scene itself plays out like the most classic of rom-com setups. Barbara drops her papers and asks for help from two men passing by, both of whom promptly ignore her. Diana then comes swooping in, like a traditional romance hero, to help the faltering Barbara. Swept off her feet, Barbara essentially asks Diana out on a date, and her nervous stuttering indicates the kind of shyness we often see when characters are trying to initiate a romantic relationship.
Do you want to get lunch?
I'm
not now, obviously. It's morning, but later today or whenever, like around like lunchtime.
At first, Diana rejects this offer, but later, in another classic romance movie trope, she arrives again, and this time takes charge herself, inviting Barbara out for dinner, an escalation of the previously offered lunch, and in a different context, could easily have been seen as a pretext for the advancement of their physical relationship.
Well, thanks for talking to me. I'm sorry.
You know, we could go and grab early dinner and talk about exactly how lame that stone is.
So why shouldn't this entire interaction be viewed romantically? Because it would be scandalous? Because there were no bisexual people in the 1980s? I mean, we're happy to believe that this Amazonian woman can fly and swing a lasso that compels people to tell the truth, but if two adult women are into each other, oh no, my immersion is ruined. I think I can sum up my annoyance with this decision via a very small but significant piece of dialogue. When Diana and Barbara are discussing love on their non-date date, Diana confesses that she was once in love, a long time ago. Notice how Barbara chooses to further probe about it.
So what happened? Where'd he go, your guy?
Where did he go? Your guy. Nowhere did Diana state that the person she was in love with was a man. And again, if the film was conscious about coding this interaction romantically, or at least leaving that door open, which would have been a powerful message in my opinion, the simplest change would have fixed this line. Barbara could simply have asked, "What happened to the person you were in love with?" Or, if you wanted to be even more explicit with the flirtation, Barbara might ask, "What happened to your guy?" Or girl. It's complete speculation, but I don't think Wonder Woman 1 would have shied away from a line like this. But somewhere along the way, the sequel lost its punch and perhaps its desire to do something significant. Another of the very few interesting scenes in the film comes right after Barbara and Diana's dinner, when Barbara is walking home through the park at night. We see evidence of Barbara's kindness as she gives a homeless man some food. But a short ways on, she begins to be harassed by a drunken, obnoxious lout. Catcalling in the film is a pretty frequently recurring motif, with Barbara in particular harassed at several points in the film. The film sets up to explore a potentially interesting idea here, commenting on a frequent threat that women dealt with both in the 80s and still to this day. The language that the drunken assailant uses is pretty telling too, echoing the common sentiment of the kinds of men who harass women, that really, they should see being catcalled as a compliment.
I'm just trying to be nice here. I'm just trying to help you.
As the drunken man gets physical and the danger threatens to escalate, Diana intervenes, saving Barbara by sending the drunken man flying. Again, what's interesting about this scene is that it would not be out of place in an old romantic film, the damsel in distress being physically saved by her powerful romantic interest. But by having Diana be the one who does this, the film subverts an otherwise outdated trope and turns it into a potentially powerful message.
How did you...
Simple self-defense. Use his own momentum against him. I'll teach you.
I can teach you. To me, this is the essence of what the film should have focused on. This is what Wonder Woman really is. Sure, Diana can fight global supervillains and nefarious oligarchs, but really what Wonder Woman is a symbol, both in and outside the film world. Wonder Woman, the character, may have superhuman abilities, but what has made her so compelling to so many people is that she's a woman who ignores convention. She's independent, confident, indomitable, and she leads by example in a society that explicitly asks her to not do any of those things. Even within the film world, the 2017 Wonder Woman was the first female-led film in the recent wave of DC and Marvel hero flicks, and was the first ever American studio superhero movie directed by a woman in the form of Patty Jenkins. So why not have this kind of idea be Diana's dilemma? The call and arguably the responsibility she has to help other women versus her jaded, aloof state of mind. The inner fight between being the woman who could do more and the superhuman who needs to do less. And of course, as all good antagonists do, this is where Barbara would challenge her on her moral beliefs. As Barbara wishes on the citrine stone to become more like Diana and thus inadvertently gaining her powers, she would represent the side that Diana has been neglecting. Again, the seeds of this are in the film itself. One of the first significant things Barbara does when she gets her newfound powers is to take revenge on the man who harassed her in the park when he starts to do it again.
Slow down, sexy.
But in the film, the scene is merely used to show how Barbara is evil when she beats this man possibly to death. We're not sure since we never actually have this confirmed. Unfortunately, this is just the heavy-handed approach the film takes to everything. We don't need Barbara to be a villain or a saint, we just need to see Barbara be different to Diana. What I wanted to see was simply Barbara doing more, the way Diana seems to not want to do. For Barbara to start teaching women, the way Diana offered to, but never does. What if Barbara begins to become the superhero that Diana has always shied away from being? What if she begins to fight injustice, but not against global villains, because that is the scope she knows nothing about, but simply injustice against women? What if she encourages other women to stand up for themselves and begin a movement? What if she does become a national celebrity? What if she compels Diana to make herself count while our Amazonian princess is left wrestling with the need to stay as a hidden, benevolent guardian of Earth rather than its shining superhero? These are the kind of issues I would personally have loved to see explored. Issues that really grapple with what it would mean to be a Wonder Woman in a world where being a woman was not always seen as a good thing. Instead, Barbara's character is treated shoddily, and I think the most telling example that the film just doesn't get it is how it handles Barbara's physical transformation after she gains her new superpowers. One of the deep-seated issues plaguing Barbara, as I alluded to earlier, was that she lacks all self-confidence and she feels she is undesirable. When she becomes like Diana as she wished, we naturally expect that she will become desirable, and presumably to men. But to show this, the film relies on the oldest of harmful stereotypes, the makeover scene. Immediately after her powers kick in, Barbara goes from this to this. And after watching this scene, I just knew from this point on the film would disappoint. Why can Barbara not be considered beautiful looking like she does at the start of the film? Why is the message of the film that to be desirable as a woman, you have to look a very particular way, rather than simply looking like a normal woman? Why not have it so that Barbara remains looking exactly like she does, but others around her treat her differently after she gets her wish? After all, I think any evolved human being would understand that beauty is all about perception. And what was wrong all along was not Barbara's appearance, but the regressive perceptions that the men around her had when looking at it. Especially when you factor in that it's the same actress underneath it all, and thus her inherent appeal was there all along. The tragedy of the film is that even after her ascent to supermodel status, Barbara is still fundamentally a pawn for men, perpetually flattered by those showing interest in her, and ultimately easily manipulated by Maxwell Lord. Even after she becomes the strongest woman on Earth, after Wonder Woman's powers wane, She succumbs to becoming a pawn for Lord to pursue his miscellaneous and confusing quest to grant everyone wishes. And to me, that just feels so wrong for a film that's supposed to be about displaying the power that women can have. Lord can still be the big baddie, but he's evil because he's willing to manipulate Barbara, instead of this bizarre quest for wish granting. We know he's evil because his predatory behavior shows us that he is. And even if we grant that Barbara may initially be drawn to him, I certainly don't want to see her end up as a glorified bouncer preventing meetings with Maxwell Lord. And of course, it has to be spelled out that this does not mean that Wonder Woman 1984 would have then been an attack on men, but instead, it could have been an attack on female subjugation. There can be sympathetic male characters too, and allies who assist Diana and Barbara in defeating Maxwell Lord. If we take the current version of the film, the message is a childish declaration that lying is bad, a moral that is as vague as it is vapid.
No true hero is born from lies.
But really, what the message of the film should be is twofold. Firstly, that there is no right way to be a woman. This is what Diana and Barbara would eventually come to understand. That their being different and believing different things doesn't inherently mean that one is right and the other is wrong. And the second would be that power is a privilege. Having the ability to do more means having the responsibility to do more, whether that's in a physical or social sense. And Diana would learn that no matter how frustrating the world can be, or how slowly it may progress, one must never stop trying to change it. And with this renewed sense of purpose, Wonder Woman 1984 would end with our main character stronger than ever. Not in any physical way, for she is already a supreme being, but with a strengthened resolve that she can be both a wonder and a woman without ever compromising either side. Thank you for watching this video. Video essays like these take a long time and a lot of research to make, so if you'd like to see me continue to make more, then please do consider signing up to my Patreon, where you can get yourself things like sneak previews, named credits, private chats with me, and also an influence on future video sections. The link is in the video description. I'd like to give a huge shout out to my current patrons whose support keeps this channel going. But that's all for now, so please make sure you stay subscribed for future content, and I'll be back with another soak session. See you soon.